What is fly floatant? An introduction to fly fishing.
Welcome to For Fly Fishing, where we try to prepare you to have an awesome day fly fishing.
Have you ever wondered what fly floatant is and how to use it? In this video, we will introduce you to the characteristics of fly floatant and how to use it. Stick around to the end and learn what kind of floatant we would recommend for the beginning fly fisher. Fly floatant is used to keep a dry fly on the surface of the water. Dry flies are designed to float and imitate insects that are sitting on the water's surface. But as the fly is used, it can absorb water. This causes the fly to sink or become waterlogged. Fly floatant creates a barrier between the fly and the water. It repels water and keeps the fly on the surface. Most fly floatants are made from silicone and similar compounds that do not mix with water. It can be applied directly to the fly using a small brush or dropper bottle and should be reapplied as much as necessary depending on water conditions and how often the fly is cast. There are a few different kinds of floatant to help the dry fly stay dry and float. Trying each one out will help the fly fisher determine which one works best for them. Stay tuned for a description of the 4 most popular styles. There are a few different types of fly floatants you can use when fly fishing. Each has its own strengths and weaknesses. The one that works best will depend on a few different things, like the type of fly being used, the water conditions, and personal preference. To begin with, I will discuss one of the most common types of fly floatants, silicone, and its characteristics. Silicone-based fly floatants are the most popular floatant and are made out of water-repelling silicone compound. They will work in different water conditions and are applied easily with a brush or dropper bottle. The downside, they can be messy, leaving an oily residue on the water's surface. Like and subscribe if you like this content. Second, I will discuss powder fly floatant and its characteristics. Powder floatants are a dry, dust-like substance that gets applied to the fly to make a water-repelling layer. It's easy to apply and works well in calm water conditions, but is not a good choice in faster-moving water and windy conditions. Third, I will discuss gel fly floatant and its characteristics. Gel floatants are a thicker style of floatant that gets applied directly to the fly. They're not as messy as silicone-based floatants and are effective in many different water conditions. But because it is difficult to apply correctly, it can make them not as effective. Finally, I will discuss paste fly floatant and its characteristics. Paste floatants are thicker than silicone and are rubbed onto the fly to create a barrier between the fly and the water. They are not as messy as silicone-based floatants. They are more effective in faster moving water or in windy conditions. One last thing to consider is proper care of the fly floatant. When using a dry fly floatant, make sure you store it properly. Most dry fly floatants are sensitive to temperature and will be affected by exposure to extreme heat or cold, so that your fly floatant does not dry out or loses effectiveness. Store it in a cool, dry place and avoid leaving it in direct sunlight or in your car on a hot day. When you take care of your floatant and use it correctly, it'll take care of you. Wrapping up a dry fly floatant will help improve your success when fishing with dry flies. To keep your fly afloat and visible on the surface, this can increase your chances of attracting fish and getting them to strike. Whether you choose liquid silicone, gel, powder, or paste floatant, make sure to apply it right, not using too much so you do not spook the fish or create an unnatural look. Always consider the type of water you're fishing in and the conditions of the day when selecting a floatant. Different types of floatants will work better in different situations, so make sure you experiment and adjust the floatant you use accordingly. Once you master dry fly floatant, you will elevate your fly fishing game and increase your chances of catching a trophy fish. So next time you hit the water with your dry fly setup, be sure to have some floatant on hand and give it a try for yourself. Have an awesome day, and don't As I promised, silicone fly floatant is a must-have for any fly fisherman because it is easy to use, effective, and long-lasting. This floatant helps your flies float higher and stay on the water longer, leading to more fish. If you are a fly fisherman, I highly recommend giving silicone fly floatant a try. If you liked this content, you might like some of these other videos. And don't forget to check your fly.